The other big story unfolding in the nation's capital right now, the U.S. Supreme Court hearing arguments involving former President Donald Trump.
The case centers on Colorado's efforts to remove Trump from the state's primary ballot. Joining us live from Washington, D.C. with more on today's arguments is CBS 2's Skylar Henry. Skylar.
Jim and Erica, good to be with the both of you. Well, these justices were considering the unprecedented and consequential nature of this case and the question as to whether a state can enforce a rarely invoked post-Civil War provision of the Constitution that would ultimately allow them to remove the former president from that state's primary ballot. Well, these justices, both conservative and liberal, appeared a bit skeptical and poised to allow the former president to stay on that ballot. Conservative and liberal Supreme Court justices alike seemed very skeptical of Colorado's Supreme Court ruling that former President Trump is ineligible to be on that state's ballot due to his connection with the January 6th insurrection.
What's a state doing deciding who gets to, who other citizens get to vote for president?
Colorado relied on Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, implemented after the Civil War, which says no person shall hold any office who took an oath as an officer of the United States, but then engaged in an insurrection.
The framers were concerned about charismatic rebels who might rise through the ranks up to and including the presidency of the United States.
The thing that really is troubling to me is I totally understand your argument, but they were listing people that were barred, and president is not there.
The justices largely avoided arguments about whether the former president engaged in an insurrection on January 6th, focusing instead on the ballot access.
I think they are headed towards a fairly consensus ruling on what power states have to resolve this matter, but it could set us up for a big political discussion later on.
That's because former President Trump potentially still faces criminal trials surrounding the events of January 6th.
We could have a lot of discussion and potentially disruption around the idea that Donald Trump, if he won the election in November, he might not be qualified to serve as president of the United States.
Speaking outside of his Mar-a-Lago home, Trump called today's hearing another form of election interference.
You have millions of people that are out there wanting to vote, and they happen to want to vote for me.
The court is expected to issue its ruling in the next couple of weeks. Now, the former president wants those criminal cases against him thrown out, citing presidential immunity. The lower courts in that case are rejecting that claim. We expect the former president's attorneys to then appeal that right here to the Supreme Court. We are outside of the Supreme Court. I'm Skylar Henry. Jim and Erica, back to you.
Thanks, Skylar.